The Hour.
Bush World, published by G.P. Putnam, is a collection of a column from the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Times, Maureen Dowd, with an introduction that's worth the price of the book, actually. Maybe you already read the columns, but anyway, detailing the rather extensive history that Ms. Dowd shares with both Presidents Bush, as well as a critique of the conduct of their respective administrations and an often amusing analysis of their psyches, including, in my view at least, psychoanalysis, a method developed by Sigmund Freud that relies on events in one's childhood to suggest why people are crazier than, say, Teresa Hines. Please welcome to the Imus Morning program, Maureen Dowd. Good morning, Ms. Dowd.
Good morning, Don.
How are you?
I'm terrified.
Why would you be terrified? You know we like you.
Oh, God, do I have to look at myself? Okay. I went on TV for the first time this week in 13 years, or last week and this week, and Brian Lamb told me I needed to loosen up. You're in trouble when Brian Lamb tells you you need to loosen up.
You know, he does the best book interview of anybody.
Terry Gross is fantastic, too.
I don't like Terry Gross.
You don't?
No.
I really like her.
I like Brian Lamb.
She has that nice buttery voice.
Well, here's what I'm wondering.
Do I look at you here or up there? No, I can't look up there. I'm up there.
Well, just pretend it's radio.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to look anywhere.
Okay.
You hate doing interviews, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
And you seldom, if ever, appear on television.
No. Mm-mm.
So is this a deal you've made with the devil or what?
Yes. It is. And if I had, Martin Short had this line in the paper the other day. He has a new Broadway show, and they said, "What are you going to call it?" And he said, "I'm going to call it, If I Had Saved Money, I Wouldn't Be Here." So it's sort of like that.
Where were you raised?
I was raised in Washington. My dad was a police detective there.
Oh, he was?
Mm-hmm.
What'd your mom do?
My mom was a mom.
Okay. Is she still alive, right?
Yes.
And your dad is not?
She's a big fan of yours.
She is?
No, my dad died when I was in college. He was actually much older. He was 61 when I was born. And I think he was lying about his age, actually. He lied about his age on my birth certificate, so I think he was actually 63 when I was born.
Wow. Well, your mother's a fan of the president, I guess all the Bushes, right?
Right. My mom this week said to me, "Don't you feel bad being the black sheep of our family?" And I said, "Well, at least it gives me something in common with the president." A little empathy.
And she said, well, how'd she respond to that? I mean, that's being mean to your mom, isn't it?
No, my family is very upset with me that I would be putting out a Bush. But they've totally forgotten my Clinton coverage during impeachment. Now they're just focused on the fact that I should be. I took my mom to the White House Christmas party during Bush 1, and President Bush kissed her. And in the car on the way home, there was a long silence, and then my mom said, "I don't ever want you to write a mean word about that man again. He is a really good kisser." I said, "Mom." So.
I wonder if your mom read your column this past Sunday when you hammered our guy, John Kerry, making him appear the buffoon, which I'm wondering why you thought that was necessary.
Well, I should stipulate at the beginning here for you that President Bush Sr. has told me he's a huge fan of yours and listens to your program all the time. So we have to proceed thinking he may be listening. And he told me, which is an amazing fact for a Bush, that even though you support Kerry, he still likes you, which I've never seen in that family. But also I sent him Deirdre's cookbook for his 80th birthday because it's all full of broccoli recipes.
Yeah.
And I read my mom Deirdre's cookbook, and my mom goes, "That is a fantastic cookbook. All we need to do is add meat." It's perfect.
Which my wife, by the way, approves of, as long as it's organic meat, so I don't quite understand. But
now, have you tasted that, what do you call it, TVP?
I've eaten everything.
The textured vegetable protein?
Yes.
That is some scary stuff.
No, it's good. I mean, if you can get kids and cowboys to eat it, it's, but, I mean...
You never finish chewing it.
Most people like meat and all that kind of stuff, and we understand that. In fact, all of our friends are cattle ranchers, so... We're talking with Maureen Dowd, his new book, Bush World. Has it been published yet, or...?
I think it was out maybe yesterday.
Oh, okay. I got enormously irritated when I saw you at the convention with Brokaw and Russert, and screaming at your agent about it, but...
I know. Tom asked me for the book, and I said, never mind the book. I'm too nervous. Forget about it. Yeah. But then the Putnam publicist brought it.
When did your dad, was he the homicide detective?
He was for a while, but, when my cat had kittens, my dad couldn't handle it. So he got off homicide, and he was in charge of Senate security for 20 years, and he was one of the ones who wrestled, when the Puerto Ricans shot up the house, he wrestled one of them to the ground. And then there was a trial in New York, and the defense lawyer, had a very kind of dramatic moment where he said, how do you know that my client is the one that was shooting up the house? And my dad goes, well, look at his gun. I carved my initials into it. So they picked up the gun. And those bullet holes are still in the desk in the house. And he was, in Point of Order, the story about Joe McCarthy. He's featured in a cameo role. He was in charge of security there.
And then your brother and sister worked on Capitol Hill or no?
My brothers, when they were teenagers, were pages for Prescott Bush, this president's grandfather, and JFK and Nixon and Lyndon Johnson, Fulbright, all those guys. They were, my brother Martin was the one who used to have to go and put up the top of Kennedy's convertible if it was going to rain. And they had something where if the wives had great legs, they would put them in the front of the gallery, the visitors gallery, and Jackie always got in the front.
Now, is there anything in your life that's going to come out later that all of the reporters from all of the Lloyd Groves of the world are going to call me about?
No doubt.
And ask me why I enthusiastically supported your book and what do I have to say about this latest information?
As Ali G would say, no doubt. You can expect it.
Well, I just hope not. No. Have you ever been married?
No, I thought you were going to find me someone. You always come up with married guys. You come up with good guys, but they're married. Like Joe Queenan. Very cute.
Well, I don't know they're married. I had another guy for you, Christopher Whitcomb, right, Charles?
Exactly.
This guy's fabulous.
Terrific.
Okay.
But he's married, so.
Now, that time when I met you, was Brokaw trying to fix us out at that dinner? I mean, I know you already were involved with Deirdre, but did Brokaw know that? Because he's famous. He fixed up Jane Pauley and Gary Trudeau.
No, he wasn't. He knew I was, because he knew Deirdre before I did.
Yeah, because that wouldn't work because it would be like two Larry Davids in the same household. I mean, I make you look like Paris Hilton.
Well, yeah, that's true. When did you decide you wanted to be a reporter first or miss him, right?
No, I was too shy. I mean, when I first started in reporting, I'd have to go on a lot of homicides, and, kids would be killed on prom night, and I would drive up to the house and just drive around the block 50 times, and then put my head down on the wheel and think I should leave and then think that wasn't fair to my paper. I mean, it took me years to get to the point where I could actually ask somebody a question. And I still never ask presidents questions. And, the first President Bush was threatening to ask me a question in a primetime news conference. I'm not really that temperamentally suited to it, but I like the writing part. I should be a novelist or something.
Some suggest you are now.
Nobody suggests that. I'm very accurate.
Well, maybe Charles suggests that.
No, well, Charles.
When we describe one of your columns as being unreadable, or suggest that you've mailed it in, which I'm sure you'll be honest and admit that happens because it happens with us.
No, I never have mailed it in.
Well, with accident or whatever.
I mean, it might not be good, but I don't mail it in. I'm trying.
Oh.
But that's why I did this book. This is a true story. I was sitting around my house one morning a couple months ago. This is what I do at my house. Yeah. And I was sort of, not steaming, it's too strong a word, but I was kind of getting upset that you hadn't liked any of my columns in the year leading up to the war. And I was thinking, God, if he could read them now, would he like them better now that he's seen everything that unfolded? Because at the time, maybe it was a little ahead of its time to be having these satires about Pearl and Wolfowitz all the time. And Hal used to, write me emails and say, never mind what Imus says. And all my, readers of the Times would say, never mind what Imus says. You're not a complete boring idiot who's lost your touch. So I was sitting around my house thinking, if he could read them now, would he like them better? Which is such a fruitless occupation. I don't know why I was doing it. But then I thought, how could I get him to read them again? Then I thought the only way I could do it is if I put them in a book and call Esther Newberg. And I had never wanted to have an agent or I never wanted to put my columns in a book because I thought they would be too perishable. But in this case, because, so 80% of Fox viewers still think there's an Al-Qaeda Saddam link, at least there's some audience that might want to know what really happened at some point. And also, I didn't want to have an agent because I thought it would be really pretentious and, they'd be like Tony Curtis and Sweet Smell of Success. Cookie full of arsenic, which of course that's true. But anyway, so I called her, and I only just actually met her today. I guess I met her briefly once before, but she's fantastic because an agent, it turns out, is like a girlfriend who's paid to listen to you whine. Like she can't, if I call her and I want to complain about stuff, my other girlfriends get off the phone, she has to listen.
She has a rather interesting history herself, as you perhaps know.
Yes, I haven't asked her about that.
Well, you should.
I didn't know if she would want to talk about it.
She doesn't want to talk about it, Chappaquiddick. No, absolutely doesn't want to talk about it. So she hates me, but she's afraid of me, so she has to listen to it. Well, she hangs up. No, she hangs up on me.
Have you gotten anything out of her on that?
Well, of course not. You could have her at that, what's the name of that prison in Baghdad? Yeah, you could have her there, and you could have her in a pile of naked people handcuffed. Well, I don't know that she'd mind that all that much, frankly.
Oh, no, I can see her pointing to doing the point thing to Lindy, pointing at the guy's genitals. Come on.
With a pell-mell hanging out of her mouth. Now, we're talking with Maureen Dowd from the New York Times. She won a Pulitzer Prize for these columns she wrote, and she's written this book now, Bush World. Well, there's a collection of her columns that are worth rereading, incidentally. It turns out she was right. You know what we got tired of? It's not about, if we didn't like you or like the book, you wouldn't be here. But I know, Charles, I got tired of the rummy, woofy, bushy stuff, but now I see why you did it. Now, these people are war criminals. They should be handcuffed. They should be let out of there. I don't know if I actually feel that way about President Bush. I don't know him, and I think he's just I don't think he's a dope, but I don't think he's a bad person. But I think the other people are bad people.
How can no one have been fired in all this? I mean, Tunabit, he wasn't even really fired, and he wasn't even, he's guilty of being a sycophant, but if you're going to, get rid of people for that, just get rid of the whole government. But how can no one, who got the Phoenix memo? Who threw away Colleen Rowley's, phone calls? I don't see how no one can, how can we have any confidence that they're taking care of our security when I didn't even think they got rid of any of the immigration people who screwed up.
I saw they got rid of Richard Clark, or did he leave on his own?
They sidelined him and then he left. But don't you think, I think that this president is a little bit threatened by certain types of people, and that's why he doesn't surround himself with guys like McCain and Giuliani. But I would feel better if people like McCain and Giuliani weren't, in charge of security and intelligence. A really strong figure who you knew was going to get in there and kick some butt.
What does Bush World mean?
Bush World is sort of an alternative universe, a bizarre universe where things are the opposite of what they seem, and where they take us on a really scary ride for their own subterranean reasons. I've made about 800 pages of notes here because I was so scared. But here's like a quote from when Bush said the other day, "It is a ridiculous notion to assert that because the United States is on the offensive, more people want to hurt us. We are on the offensive because people do want to hurt us." That's a perfect Bush World quote. It's not true, and it's nonsensical. It's the opposite of what is true.
Well, what's he going to do, though? He's got to operate with what he's got.
Well, his new campaign motto is America is safer, be afraid, be very afraid. It's just everything is an oxymoron.
It's 18 till the hour we're talking. Well, this is not going too badly, is it? Is it bad or badly?
Bad.
It's not going too bad, is it, Maureen?
I don't know. I'll have to turn on the radio afterwards and see if you guys make fun of me.
Well, no, we make fun of you all the time, but does the president have a nickname for you, by the way?
Cobra.
That's what he calls you, or you call him?
No, he calls me that.
He does?
Behind my back. He doesn't call me on the phone, and I don't see POTUS come up on the caller ID.
That's an intimidating...
Like Monica did.
That may be the most intimidating snake on the planet.
No, we don't want to say I'm intimidating if I'm looking for dates,
Well, if he calls you Cobra, though, I don't think that's good, is it?
I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing in the Texas Gorge. Maybe that's a sign of respect.
So take me back now to the relationship with President Bush 41. You used to have a good relationship with him, right? Or...
Yeah, I still do. I mean, he
Really?
calls it a love-hate relationship. He gets very upset when his son is criticized. I mean, he loves it when I tweak the Clintons, and he hates it when I tweak the Bushes. I mean, he's a fiercely loyal father, even though he and his son are in this weird Oedipal loop-de-loop where the son has kind of upended his legacy and destroyed everything he and his father worked for in the Atlantic Alliance. But he compartmentalizes that in a waspy way in his head and just kind of is loyal to his son anyway. So he sometimes, would send me a little screed about the New York Times and the lids at the New York Times. And, he was lovely to me, I have to say. He's a lovely guy.
He wrote me a charming letter explaining to me why he wasn't ever going to appear on this program.
I wonder if he would for the campaign, though. I know he loves you and he listens to you.
He says his wife gets annoyed with me, but she needs to calm down. So.
Of course.
I'm so sure the way he feels, he just won't say that. So. What do you think the relationship is? Do you think he offers his son advice or no? I know his son said he appeals to a different father, but... The son says he appeals to a higher authority, which sounds like Hebrew National ads, doesn't it? A little bit.
I think that it's, I had heard this from his old aides before and sort of didn't believe it. I believed it, but no one else would believe it when I said it until it was in Bob Woodward's book. And Woodward pressed him and said, but you must have talked to your father before going to war with Saddam because he's the only other, president who's ever been to war with Iraq, and you would have wanted to get his advice. And the president said, no, I have the advice of a higher father. And that, I think, even if, I don't want to get too psychobabbly, but that's just weird that even if he wasn't his father, that one Republican president who is going to war with a dictator against his own people wouldn't call the only other one who, he has on speed dial. It just doesn't make sense. Even if he just wanted to make his dad feel good, But he gave an interview in May to the Washington Times, and he said, I am not going to cut and run like they did in 91. Well, he's talking about his father when he says that. What kind of a thing is that to say? I think it's way harsh.
Well, how did he emerge as the boy king here? I thought it was going to be Jeb.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like it was overnight.
My friend Michael Duffy at times says they had to take down the pictures of Jeb at the Bush Presidential Library. They were papering the library and put up ones of W. I mean, nobody, if you could put Marlon Fitzwater and Mary Madeline under sodium pentothal, nobody who worked with him in those days ever thought he would be president. I mean, he was just, Lee Atwater hung out with him because it's always good to be hanging with a family member. It never hurts. But he was not taking his own life seriously at that point, and nobody took him seriously as a contender.
You think I had to get up and get some more gum? Do you think they stole the election in 2000?
Well, I think that what's fascinating about the neocon gang heisting the war on terror for their own purposes is that it was a heist of a heist. The Democrats think that they heisted the election. And so then the Democrats sort of said, well, we're watching them. They better not go too far to the right and stuff. Not only did they go, way over to the right, but then they heist half a century of American foreign policy. It's breathtaking. It's like, got everything that a Clooney Pitt movie has, except Clooney and Pitt.
The country was clearly conned on going to war in Iraq. Do you think the president was, or do you think he knew what Rumsfeld and Cheney and the rest of them knew and lied about it?
Well, when you read, my publisher's going to be mad that I'm promoting Woodward's book and not my book, but when you read Woodward's book, I mean, it's so amazing because it's clear the president went to war on body language. He didn't ask any of his advisors or his father's old war counsel. And it seems when you read the book that Cheney and Romney, and Romney calls himself Romney. That's not my nickname for him. That's what Sapphire and his old friends call him.
Okay.
But it's clear that they maneuvered him into a position where there were so many troops en route there that they told him that he would look like a wimp if he didn't go through with it. And that, if you say that to a Bush, they're going to go through with it. That's just, the worst thing you can say to them, the thing they're most afraid of.
How complicated is it to explain how the world got where it is? And this may just be my view, but it appears to me that the world is being held hostage by terrorists here in America, which is relatively new, and in every other country on the planet, where in many cases, for example, Israel is not new.
Well, I think this is part of what Bush world is, because I think everything that they said they were going to do has turned out the reverse. They thought, Cheney thought, he was reading Bernard Lewis and all these, Victor Hansen down in his underground location. He was reading about smallpox, and he got very gloomy. And he thought if we, kick some Arab butt, that our enemies would back off. And we couldn't kick Iran because it was too strong, so we decided to kick the weakest, which was Iraq. But their premise was wrong. Instead of, our enemies backing off, it became what, that guy Anonymous who wrote Imperial Hubris said, a Christmas present for Osama. In Osama's wildest dreams, he couldn't believe, A, we were taking our ball, our eye off the ball of Osama, and we have, 15,000 troops in Afghanistan, which is like the New York City Police Department, and 140,000 in Iraq. I mean, what's wrong with that picture? So, it was an incredible recruiting tool for him. And the administration alternates. Their credibility is shattered because they alternate between telling us Al-Qaeda's on the run and decimated and Al-Qaeda's coming to get us. So.
Does Dick Cheney play the role that, the John Stewarts of the world, and I guess us and others think he does?
He's definitely the villain of Bush world. I think he's this is why I decided to do the book, because my other columns I thought maybe were too ephemeral, but this is a story that runs through myth and literature, the father-son story. And, that guy, what's his name, McEwen, who runs that great screenwriting class, had a great quote in a New Yorker profile of him where he said, the ultimate great story is the father-son story. And every son wants to do better than his father, but not so much better that he humiliates his father. And in Arthur Miller, in Joseph Campbell myths, and Star Wars is based on Joseph Campbell myths. It's the story of the good father and the dark father, Darth Vader. And so Bush is Luke Skywalker, and he was brought to the dark side. He didn't go along with his father and grandfather's internationalism. In essence, it's like the biggest teenage rebellion ever seen in the history of the world. Bush Sr. gave Bush Jr. the keys to the station wagon, and he crashed it into the globe. He just upended half a century of American alliances and, multilateral agreements and arrangements, everything his family had nurtured.
Who will win the election?
I don't think anybody, Johnny Apple, Adam Nagurny, nobody knows because it's so volatile because of terrorism. And, I think that's why Kerry didn't get a big bounce out of the convention. Everyone is so dug in.
If we find you a husband, I'm a licensed, I don't know whether you know this or not, but I am a licensed ordained minister.
Is that on the internet?
No, it's not on the internet.
No.
I've been a licensed ordained minister for 30 years.
So you want to marry me at the ranch?
No, we want to marry you on MSNBC and on the radio.
They didn't allow, multiple wives in New Mexico, do they? No.
Do they, Randall? Well, Randall's the wrong person to ask, by the way. Well, it's over. It's pretty good, wasn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I can leave?
It's a great book. Charles, who, of course, worships President Bush and all of them, agree. It's a brilliant. The introduction is worth the price of the book, and the columns are obviously worth rereading. It was a great idea for a book, and it's a great book.
And I don't think the market on Bush books is saturated either. I think they have books on everything, including trashing Condi's dog.
Anyway, thank you very much, and good luck with us. You're welcome. Maureen Dowd here on the I'm. You're welcome. Maureen Dowd here on the I'm Smart program.
I'm going to be a leader for peace. By strengthening our alliances, we will be friends with our allies when we don't need each other, so that when we do, we can stand firm for peace and freedom.
I'm back in the saddle again, out where in the morning.
The New York Times bestseller, not the one starring Janet Jameson, but the critique of all the columns devoted to the Bush administrations, both of them. And the op-ed columnist for the New York Times, Maureen Dowd. Good morning, Ms. Dowd.
Good morning, Don.
How are you?
Good.
Julie London?
Yes, that's my fantasy. But not to be married to the dragnet guy.
Jack Webb?
Julie London without Jack Webb. Yeah.
Here's my question. I was flipping around last night on, I live in Manhattan, we do, and I'm flipping around with my cable thing. And here you are doing an interview with somebody on the CUNY deal. What was that?
Look, my book tour's over now, so you don't have to, I'm not going to be, a TV slut anymore. I'm all yours again.
No, but, well,
Don't have to be jealous.
No, but I'm not jealous. I'm just...
You are.
No, I'm not.
You are as controlling as Dick Cheney. You are.
But my question was, so that was a book appearance?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, no moss on a book. I mean, it's like Russia.
No, I'm done.
Russia went on. Well, there was nothing he didn't go on.
I know. I vowed I was not going to be as visible as Tim with his book, but I guess I outdid him.
And then who was it? Do you remember the guy's name who interviewed you?
Yes. Are we going to move on to politics now?
Why didn't you let me conduct the interview and you just answer the question? How does that sound? Julie?
You are Dick Cheney. You are.
No, but I mean, yes, we're going to move on in a minute here. I just wanted and then you told the guy you wanted to be was it a truck stop waitress or just a waitress in Montana?
I want to be a cocktail waitress in a militia bar, okay?
A cocktail waitress?
Yeah. I do.
Well,
I do.
Hey, how about Sapphire retiring?
I know. I'm really sad about that, but he's going to keep his language column.
Oh, great.
Yeah. He's such a sweetie. He is such a great guy. Have you ever had him on your show?
No, he won't appear with us.
He won't? Why not?
I don't know. Haven't we invited him?
Yes, we have.
No, he won't appear. Nor will David Brooks, who is, I think, equally. Do you know David Brooks?
Yeah, he doesn't come into the office too much. He works, I think, out of his house. But, yeah, I know him.
He's brilliant, don't you think, or no?
David? Yeah, I recommended him, actually.
We did?
Yeah.
So he won't come on either.
Well, God, lucky you have me. You better be nicer to me then.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get really big ratings by having David Brooks and William Saffron. I'm heartbroken they won't agree to appear, so. Well, why would I saw you and Saffron meet the press? I mean, why would he retire? He's
I know. He's fantastic. I don't know. I wish he wouldn't.
What is he going to do?
Well, he's going to do the language column, and he's written about 100 books. So he's written books where Alexander Hamilton is having sex, and he's written books about words, and he's a sort of a Renaissance guy, so I'm sure he'll be busy. And also, he has some weird kind of Johnny Grisham-like theory foundation that has to do with the brain.
There's only two people who read the language column, Deirdre Imus and Charles McCord.
I love that column.
Don't read it. It's like everybody's raving about the new Philip Roth novel.
Right.
It's about like Tom Wolfe's new book.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to read that over the weekend. It's hard, the Tom Wolfe one.
Oh, well, please.
Yeah.
Anyway, Condoleezza Rice is going to be the Secretary of State. What a
Right, I know. I was hoping for Del Miller. He could have duels with the French and throw bocce balls with the Italians. Would have been perfect.
Yeah, it was on this program that Senator Miller made the comment about you, but I
didn't hear you defending me, by the way, on the horns thing.
No, I agree with him. Why would I defend you if I agree with the guy? What's to defend? What's to defend?
Well, it's funny because my mom said in the 20s, when she went to law school for a year after high school, and she would date guys from the Deep South, from down in Virginia, and she said sometimes on a date they say to her, pull back your hair so we can see, the illuminated sign. And she'd say, what sign? And they go, well, you're Catholic, right? And so there was, over the years, this idea that Catholics had different signs on their bodies,
Like we went this is really a very brief true story. Remember we went someplace in the South, or somewhere, where Mark Chernoff is our program director, is Jewish, was with us. And there was a woman there who legitimately thought he had horns.
Right. Well, that was what the yarmulke, usually the horns thing comes, confused. But also they thought Catholics had strange signs on their flags.
Well, what time was Maureen Dowd in the New York Times? What qualifies Condoleezza Rice to be Secretary of State other than, or what does?
Well, I think, the issue is not so much that she's not qualified. She's a very smart and personable woman. The issue is...
So Charles, he's not going to be Secretary of State.
Well...
Not a woman. Oh,
I think, the issue is a much more disturbing one, which is clearly they're just pulling all of these departments under, the aegis of the White House, and Cheney and Bush are taking, there's this hilarious line on the front page of the Washington Post today where Bush wants more personal control of all of these departments. I mean, how much more control can Cheney and Bush get? But she, and Hadley, who's going to replace her, have been at the center of everything that went wrong with American policy in Iraq, and the Middle East, and they're going to get promotions. And Powell, who tried to do the right thing but actually should have resigned, is getting pushed out because basically Cheney and Rumsfeld run everything, and they don't want diplomacy.
Powell was going to leave anyway, wasn't he?
Well, according, to the Post today, he was willing to stay for a little while if they met certain conditions of his, which was to have greater engagement with Iran and a harder line with Sharon. But Bush never got to asking him to stay because they want him out. They don't want diplomacy. Diplomacy is for weenies.
Incidentally, when you said how much control can they have, Charles was screaming in the background, all of it.
I know. Charles is like my brothers.
Which is really kind of frightening.
I know. This is like my sister's always going, Latin Fallujah. It's not flat enough for her yet.
I like that, too. Lots of good bumper sticker, Latin Fallujah. 22 till the hour here at the Imus program.
There is still a brick or two.
I know. There's still, yeah.
And what's with Dr. Rice with those freaky teeth on Al Sharpton hair? What's that all about?
I think she's really, although I agree with you, I do run into her at Saks Fifth Avenue sometimes. I think she's a really charming, smart woman. I covered her when she was the Russian expert for the first President Bush. But what I think is scary is this administration creates its own reality, and they are going to act like everything they've done is right and purge the people who tried to challenge them or tell them anything was wrong, like Porter Goss. You should really be on his case. Cheney puts this toady, Porter Goss, in charge of the CIA right at a time when Assam is coming after us, and he's completely disrupted the CIA. He's like turned it upside down, brought in all his own hacks from Hill. Yeah, it would be good. You're right. It would be good if it were in a positive way, but he's making it even worse when you didn't think the CIA could be worse. So Cheney is just putting, all of his people in place. That's what's happening.
Should we all be afraid, do you think?
Yes, we should be very, very afraid. Very. Even you, Charles. I mean, everything they're doing is antithetical to our safety.
I'm sorry, we have to destroy that village to save it.
Exactly. Well, no, but look at Porter Goss. Porter Goss was a Cheney toady who tried to help Cheney suppress the 9/11 Commission. And now he's in charge of the CIA. Stephen Hadley and Condi tried to suppress the information from the Energy Department that debunked the idea that Saddam had nuclear, rods. And these are all the people who suppressed the information we needed to protect ourselves and not to go into this phony war are the ones who are now getting promoted.
Well, there's not much anybody can do about it. I mean, the guy actually won the election this time, so.
Yes, he certainly did.
Except unless you believe Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, no.
I actually saw Susan Sarandon tell Bill Maher she was citing, of course she had her facts wrong, of course, but she was citing that glitch in that the voting machine in Ohio. And Bill Maher finally had to stop her and say, no.
I know.
Actually won. Just calm down.
I know. He was, I was on the show the night he took off after Drew Barrymore left her in a little heap.
Now, I don't know if you know our history with Bill Maher, but his dad used to be our news editor.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
And Charles and I used to babysit Bill years ago.
Oh, my God.
Over at NBC.
Yeah.
And
so that's how he got to be that way.
We used to give Bill drugs and cigarettes, whiskey.
Oh, my God. That explains everything.
And we used to hook him up with the NBC pages.
Sure.
All of this is true. And then he wanted to be a comedian, and he subsequently became a fine one. And now, I mean, I think the guy's brilliant, but it's one of those things I don't have to qualify it. When somebody agrees with it, I do think he's brilliant.
Yeah, I think he's brilliant.
In 1918, today, I was talking with Maureen Dowd from the New York Times, talking about Dr. Rice and that whole mess, and then lately about the CIA and what a nightmare that is over there. And John McCain, one of your favorite people, is just saying that I don't know whether he thinks Word of Goss is good or not, but he does think that that whole thing needs to be turned upside.
Well, I think they're spinning the turmoil over there as though CIA sucks and it has to be cleaned out, which is true, obviously, since the CIA, has not known anything, including whether the Soviet Union was going to fall. It hasn't known anything in 50 or 60 years. But I don't think what Porter Goss is doing is helping the CIA, bringing in a bunch of hacks from Capitol Hill, but what you're seeing is a purge. I mean, what they're doing is bringing the State Department and the CIA under the control of Cheney and Rumsfeld and W. and, trying to get rid of anyone who leaked. They couldn't stand Colin Powell because obviously he talked to Woodward and criticized them in that book. And these guys at the CIA that they just fired, they think leaked stuff that was, made Bush look bad about how he should have known that Iraq was headed towards civil war and that it would be a mess to go in there. And again, that was information that was suppressed.
I was thinking, though, we had 8 years of the Clinton administration in which not much of anything in the world got better. We can argue that, obviously, some certain aspects of life in this country were better, the stock market and all those kinds of things and whatever. But it isn't as though, and certainly I'm not defending the Bush administration, I didn't vote for him, but I mean, it isn't as though things just, as soon as Bill Clinton left office, everything suddenly got awful, and the Palestinians and the Israelis couldn't get along with each other, and we had a problem with Iraq and throughout the rest of the world. So maybe just being a hard ass will work.
Well, I think that both...
Or not.
Well, I think the Clinton administration and the Bush administration have both made all these mistakes with regard to Osama and played into his hands and turned him into a much bigger force than he would have been otherwise. But, again, that doesn't help us, and they're not redressing that now. They just act as though he doesn't exist. They won't mention his name.
Well, how does Chief Justice Clarence Thomas sound to you?
Oh, that sounds very, very interesting, almost as good as Teresa Heinz Kerry. Did you read Evan's thing about Teresa?
Yeah, and then Howard Kurtz wrote about it yesterday.
Yeah, that the reporters hadn't reported on it. I love all the stories about her and Schramm drinking fine French wine and trashing everyone.
I wonder if any of that's true, though.
Well, you could see a lot of it. I mean, you could see that Teresa had on dark glasses and had her back to the audience and was ordering Kerry to run get her bottled water while he was supposed to be speaking.
I did see, I had a conversation with Senator Kerry the morning he was in Flagstaff, and I talked to him, and he was on his way to the Grand Canyon. And he sounded, he was giving me some phony jive, but he sounded fine to me. And then you see these photographs of him with her and the daughter on the edge of the Grand Canyon. And by the way, that was a missed opportunity, but anyway.
On whose side?
That's a good point. But they didn't look like a. I mean, it was a photograph of the Howard Kurtz article yesterday. I'll try to get this out. But they didn't look to me, and maybe it's because of the story, but they didn't look like a happy couple on vacation.
No, I mean, she was sort of emasculating him during the campaign, and Bush was emasculating him, and at the Grand Canyon as well. That's where he did out that ridiculous thing that he would have gone to war even if there were no weapons of mass destruction.
Well, I've got the feeling that she wanted, at one point, according to Evan, she wanted to debate
Howard Dean. That was my favorite part. I could not believe that she called and said, set me up in a debate with Howard Dean. At that point, she completely forgot about Kerry. I mean, she wanted to be the candidate. That was apparent. No one just kind of wrote it until, afterwards.
Well, that is, I guess, the observation I was going to make is that she always seemed uncomfortable having to talk about him. And I understand she misses her first husband, but...
Well, there was this hilarious quote in the New Yorker from a friend of hers where they said she doesn't like being in a secondary role. Well, that's kind of a problem when you're the wife of the candidate. But also, it's like she was the first billionaire we'd ever seen. The first billionaire wife. And it was like having Oprah out on the campaign. She wasn't going to be playing second fiddle.
Why did Senator Kerry marry her?
Well, he did have a thing for heiresses. He was always on the lookout for heiresses.
Every time I saw him, he was with Morgan Fairchild. Not that there's anything wrong with her.
Actresses and heiresses, yeah. But he went from being one of the, the least wealthy members of Congress to being one of the most wealthy, so...
But that seems to me to be, as they say in acting, a stretch to go from, to morph from that Oxenberg woman and Morgan Fairchild to Teresa Hines. I just don't.
But that's my favorite thing that you said in the whole campaign, that showed that he should have been president, because any man who could go from Morgan Fairchild to Teresa Hines showed that he could change and grow.
We're willing to do whatever it took to
just change, maybe.
Yeah.
And then another favorite comment I had that Rob Bartlett was telling me about is that Michael Moore was real. No, now, you can't even make this stuff up. Is now going to do Fahrenheit 9/11 and a half.
I know.
Like he's hooked up with Katzenberg and they're doing Shrek tours.
I know. As a girlfriend of mine wanted to write a book about the X-Men in her life and call it Why Won't They Go Away? That's how I feel about Michael Moore. Will he ever go away?
I was talking with Howard Feynman, who's a big defender of yours, by the way. And he... I
know. I see him defending me on Scarborough country. That's a lost cause.
he did say that, there's more red state to Maureen Dowd than probably people recognize, certainly Senator Zell Miller. And
listen, my family constitutes a red state. They are beyond red. They are like in some deep crimson territory.
But he pointed out how he did love the baby Jesus and whatever else is necessary to function in this country. But I wonder what...
And I was always chosen to play the Virgin Mary in school play, Don. I want you to know that before you diss me about the baby Jesus.
Speaking of a stretch in acting.
I want to, Gary Wills had that story in the Times that this election proved that more people believed in the virgin birth than the theory of evolution. I'm like one of the people who believes in both.
Talking with Maureen Dowd, op-ed page New York Times. Finally, I did think what was kind of an interesting question about this guy asked on that show you're on that I stumbled on last night. What are you going to do? How long are you going to continue to, like Anna Quindlen, she went on to write a number of best-selling novels that were made into movies.
I know. I can never be Anna Quindlen, even when I grow up. She's incredible, isn't she? Everything she touches turns to gold. I was thinking about writing a novel about the times. What do you think?
That's unless Hal has you murdered.
Yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't have said it on national.
Oh, the little fat guy is over there. What's his name? Sulzberger.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's always nice to have you on. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye, Charles.
Bye. Maureen Dowd from the New York Times, the author of Bush World, which was a New York Times bestseller for some time. Yeah. Okay, please welcome now, because this has now reached the point where if they don't get it fixed by 8 o'clock Eastern Time, which is 25 minutes from now, right? Then I have kids here at the ranch. I'll just go. What time is it at the ranch? They'll get up. They're going to get up. They're getting up now. Sure. It's 5:35 in New Mexico. Start their day. I'll go make the little dummies some espresso. Get them jacked up. Okay. All right, please welcome now from the New York Times, the author of the New York Times bestseller, Bush World. This woman actually won a Pulitzer Prize, Charles. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
Are they handing those out to anybody?
Yes, they are.
That is a mean thing to say, and I take it back already. Anyway, Bush World is out in paperback, hence the reason Miss Dowd has deigned to appear on our program. Please welcome to the program, Maureen Dowd. Good morning, Miss Dowd.
Good morning, Don.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are them Bushies?
Oh, well, the president, he's exporting democracy everywhere except here.
Well, what is that supposed to mean? Don't start saying mean stuff about...
You know when he wakes up at 2 a.m., it's important to the base to sign that bill.
You mean the woman with the feeding tube?
Right, exactly. The Republicans, when it's to the Republicans' advantage, they flip all their principles. They don't believe in government intervention. They believe in individuals making their own decisions, except in matters of birth, death, and sex, which is all any of us care about.
Right.
And the two instances when they've intervened in Florida state courts to snatch cases and give them to the federal judiciary, which usually they're trying to restrict, was in Bush v. Gore and in Terry Schiavo.
Didn't we get up in a cranky mood this morning?
Just like you. I heard you and Bernard calling me names. I can't believe that. Am I the person who came on your show for 10 years to promote nothing but you? Am I the person who defended you in my column when you came down here and said there was a V-chip in Peter Jennings' pants and all your other guests who were still in the program were running like rats across the frozen tundra? Am I that person?
Yes, you are.
Good.
Well, well, I can't be responsible for what Bernard says. I didn't call you anything, did I?
Well, you said I was using you.
You are.
Well, no, not really. I'm following your media instructions. You told me to stay off the air until you told me to come on the air.
Oh, I see. Well, okay. So, well, you realize that we only say these things about you because we like you.
Right.
It's like in grade school where the cute little girl in class, you pull her pigtails, because... So that's kind of what we're doing, pulling your pigtails.
Okay, but I think you guys should all go back to Astoria. I miss the creepy noir feeling of that show.
So do we.
I love that.
But I'm here in New Mexico with annoying little children. Well, they're not annoying. Actually, these are nice little kids, and I'm here on tour with them, making their lives, changing their little lives. So anyway, back to this Schiavo case. That's the way you pronounce it? How you pronounce it?
I was listening to Chip. We've been pronouncing it Schiavo, yeah.
Okay. Well, what's the broader picture here?
Well, I mean, it's a sort of disgusting scene like Weekend at Bernie's with Frist and, DeLay kind of dragging this woman in a vegetative state around Capitol Hill for their own personal ambitions. Frist is trying to display his, presidential bona fides by he's a doctor and the culture of life, and DeLay is trying to distract from his ethical problems.
Frist is a guy trying to ram through legislation that will indemnify these pharmaceutical companies in lawsuits that might result if they definitively determine that there is a relationship between thimerosal, which is a mercury-based preservative they use in children's vaccines. So
I know. I agree with you. I think they should be looking into that. I mean, it's interesting. A friend of mine at the time had a routine blood test last year and got a letter from the New York State Health Department saying she had elevated levels of mercury in her blood. And apparently a lot of people in California have elevated levels of mercury because they eat so much fish. And there are these horrible stories about, like, that one little girl who ate tuna fish every day and then couldn't tie her shoes. I mean, that's definitely something they should be looking into.
You could do a couple columns about it.
I have thought about it. I'm going to. Now you've inspired me.
Yeah, instead of just picking on our president. It's my president now, too, by the way. Because I was so humiliated in my support for John Kerry that, oh, God.
Well, don't you think I was listening to Meacham? I mean, if a Martian landed, it's so funny that we're so desperately afraid of Iraq becoming a theocracy or places in the Middle East. And yet, if a Martian landed, they would definitely think this was a theocracy. I mean, you've got these guys in Congress kind of calling this Schiavo thing the Palm Sunday Initiative and quoting Pope John Paul. Plus, on all the news magazines, they have Jesus and Mary almost every week. It's like Commonweal. And there was a special about Mary on CNN last night and headlines about how we're not teaching evolution in schools and they're not showing evolution movies in IMAX theaters. I mean, it's just a strange situation.
You were raised a Catholic?
Yeah. I was convent bred. And my mom still tells me if I can't sleep, I should say the rosary. But it's getting pretty extreme in this country.
Do you go down to, do you still do the confession thing, or did you ever?
Well, confession, yes. Confession was a fantastic, invention by the Catholic Church because it's very much like therapy. So you kind of tell all the things you've done wrong and your soul is wiped clean.
Yeah. Does the priest talk back to you when you're in confession? You're like a little phone booth or something, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. God, my first sin was
Does he talk back?
Does he? Yeah, well, he gives you, he tells you how many prayers you have to say and stuff, too.
He doesn't say, "Oh, God, that was creepy." He doesn't? So, no, really, I don't believe I'd have told that one. So to say that one. You're kidding, you didn't do that, did you?
Don't laugh,
I believe I'd have kept that to myself.
Don't laugh while he mocks our religion.
I'm not mocking your religion, Bernard.
Don't enable this satanic figure here.
I am not a satanic figure.
I'm the Antichrist.
I'm talking with Maureen Dowd, whose book, Bush World, which is a New York Times bestseller in hardcover, in cloth, what do they call it? It's now out in paperback. It's worth reading for just the introduction, which Bernard and I both agreed, and Charles, was truly a marvelous essay on where it all went wrong, at least with the Bush family. So.
The con job.
Yeah, the con job. But it turns out maybe they were right, huh, Maureen?
Well,
I mean, not for the reason they lied to us to get into this war, but then maybe he had a grander vision or something, or not.
Well, it was funny because at the Gridiron, the Saturday before last, Bush, winked at me, and it was kind of like I've got your number, and you think I have, you think you have my number, but really I win. And it was and also I talked to Condi about the boots, by the way. We can come back to that if you want.
I
know you're interested in that subject. But
I am.
To me, I mean, nothing that happens in the Middle East, of course now we all want everything good to happen in the Middle East because of our troops and because of our world. But nothing that happens to me never, ever will justify making up evidence and treating the American people as stupid idiots who can't possibly appreciate why we go to war and not telling us the truth about the war. I will never change my mind about that.
Of course, they claim that they were always talking about creating these democracies throughout the Middle East.
Didn't Cheney try and get away with that on your show? He was acting like WMD was one of the things they were mentioning after he was conjuring up mushroom clouds every week on Tim.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. No, I mean, Wolfowitz expressed it in Vanity Fair. He was saying they settled on WMD because they thought it was the easiest to sell. And then they created whole agencies within the Pentagon to make up the evidence to go along with that. So, no, and also, but basically also I think that the war in Iraq was at odds with the war on terror. So a lot of the things that we needed to stop Al-Qaeda and Osama and protect our borders and the money and troops we needed, we've used in Iraq. So I think those two things are at odds. And I think, Bush is a very lucky guy. We've been lucky not to be attacked again.
Yeah, but other than that, it seems to be working out fine, doesn't it?
Yeah, other than that, it is working out fine, right? It is. I could see the allure of it. I could see why Tom Friedman and people were drawn to it because it was like 52 card pickup. It was like, this is an intractable situation. We're going to throw all the cards in the air and get a different, deck. And, that was the allure of it, so...
By the way, it's a quote to the New York Times, Maureen Dowd, New York Times. Her book, Bush World, is out in paperback now. And, it was really painful seeing you and Sapphire and Friedman on Meet the Press with Russia. Man, you sort of know what's going on, but those two, man, now they just so out of it, it's almost disturbing.
Oh, Tim lost that show.
Well, I'm sure he did.
That show.
Well, Tim knows what's going on, though.
But wasn't it great when I got Tom to blush about Angelina Jolie?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
He has a crush on her.
I'm surprised you knew who she was.
Well, he met her in Davos.
No, I know.
Well, that's the only reason. But anyway, so do you want to hear about Condi and the boots?
Yeah, who made that? Who was the designer of that outfit that you were described as?
Oh, the boots and the Matrix thing?
No, the suit, or whatever the hell it is.
That she wore.
Yeah, is that Jean Paul Gaultier, or is that Gucci, or?
It looked like it. I don't really know.
Looks like what? Which one?
I don't really know. I don't.
You know who has the same outfit?
Who?
Andrea Mitchell.
Really?
I think she parades around the apartment there, wherever the hell the condo, wherever she and old Al live. Gets him all jacked up.
Andrea is extremely well dressed. She is.
But that looks to me like that looks like a $4,000 or $5,000 outfit, doesn't it?
Well, Condi is very well dressed. I run into her sometimes at Saks, Fifth Avenue, and Chevy Chase, and it's hilarious to see her Secret Service agents standing like mannequins next to the female mannequins in the designer section, looking, and they'll kind of like raise their eyebrows like, oh God, what am I doing here when I look at them? But I saw her at the Gridiron. I knew you were interested in the subject, so I said, I said to her, she said, hi, Maureen, and I said, and she was in another, I think it was Oscar de la Renta, that designer red thing he made for her birthday. I think it was that designer. But anyway, so I said, Condi really liked the boots. And she goes, well, it was really cold there. That's why I wore them. So that was her excuse. But I thought she
You got a
was
pair of Uggs in. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I have those boots too, so I thought she looked great.
Yeah, were you a Hunter Thompson fan?
Yes, and I knew him in 1984 at the Democratic Convention. I'd always wanted to meet him, so we met. And I'd never been to an adult film, and somehow I mentioned that, and he goes, okay, we're going to go to one tomorrow. So I go to his hotel room to pick him up, and he leaves a message with the operator. He said, if anyone calls me, tell them that Maureen Dowd of the New York Times and I have gone to see Insatiable 2 and Up and Coming. And I grabbed the phone and I go, no, don't leave that message, knowing that a lot of people were going to be calling Hunter Thompson. But anyway, so we went, and he was dressed in a wool Adidas cap and leather shorts and had a bucket full of Heineken and other paraphernalia, which he was clanking like Banquo's Ghost all the way to the movie. And, that was not an act. That was him.
He really was. Charles and I had a fight with Bernard and Lou and some other people on our program about Mr. Thompson's abilities, but he really was. There's a wonderful essay, by the way. Rolling Stone did a tribute issue. And it's a melancholy, but there's a great essay from Jan Wenner. Well, I've forgotten that Jan Wenner actually could write a little bit himself, but just a great about their relationship, which was the most entertaining part, in my view, of all of those stories that Thompson filed with Rolling Stone was the various negotiations he had with Jan Wenner about, expenses and whether or not to turn the stories in and when and that sort of thing.
Well, he was on the phone with Jan Wenner a lot in this period, but I think he'd almost already lost his ability to write as much. I'm not sure he ever delivered a story on that convention. But at least he was a wonderful character. Now we have male escorts in the press corps. At least then we had Hunter Thompson.
I don't think that was necessary, do you? The male escort line? That's just ugly. What, do you want to bring the program and get ugly? We're trying to help you sell your dopey book? You lost your mind, so.
Listen, he was given credentials by Scott McClellan, my credentials.
It's 11 minutes till the hour. There were a couple minutes left with Maureen Dowd. The New York Times has book Bushworld's out in paperback. I'm going to be sure to mention that about 9 times. One would hope you don't have my email address, but maybe you could probably email Lobster and then she'll call me and bitch at me. Back to this Chavo case. What do you think they should do? Let the woman starve to death or not, or what?
Well, I don't know. It's hard because and this is, that Congresswoman Schultz from Florida got up, and I thought she made a lot of good arguments that, this is what the courts are for, to legislate these, family dramas. I'm Catholic, so I don't really believe in euthanasia, and on the surface it looks like, why can't the husband just turn over the care of her to her family? But I don't know, what it's all about, and our congressional reporters, and Barney Frank also was making the point that once they have done this and created, this law for one person, they're going to be flooded with people who say, oh, my sister-in-law's a bitch, she's not treating my brother right. They can't take one case like this just for their own, to please Christian conservatives and turn over the Constitution like that.
It seems what's going on seems hideously, sad would be one word, but it's like getting Sid and Pat O'Brien in a limo driving back and forth in front of the liquor store and not stopping. Right.
It's hard to tell who is less appealing, Tom DeLay or her husband. I mean, he just seems really skeevy.
Nothing. I just don't think we need to mind this by employing those kinds of references. It's just inappropriate.
Well, no, I was just trying to relate to the audience.
I understand.
Maureen, you're a lot better on this program than you are on all those other programs you go on. You had a appear with us more. So just,
I'm still nervous. I was up all night. I just get really nervous about coming on.
You did fine. You did great.
Okay, good.
But now it's over.
It is?
Yeah, so you can have a cigarette and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye, guys.
Maureen Dowd here in the Episode Morning program, the author of Bushworld, right? Which is just the introduction. It's such a complete analysis of how the Bush folks got us into this mess.
The neocon job, to put it.
The neocon job was the way Bernard described it. But and then some of those columns are, well, she won a Pulitzer Prize right there. Must be pretty good. So anyway, I like her. We all like her. Maureen Dowd. Hey, to Leona. Me. Please welcome to the Imus Morning program, my favorite columnist, Maureen Dowd. Good morning, Miss Dowd.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Did you see the New York Post yesterday?
I heard about it.
You didn't see it?
I don't like to look at stuff about myself.
What kind of phone are you on?
I don't know. Oh, you're right. The connection's dead. But is that phone or you?
I don't know. What is it, Bernie?
It's a good question.
Let's reconnect with her.
Excellent idea.
Because we're not going to be able to hear her, and, we're all excited about having her on. If we can't hear her, that's not going to be good. So, 30 minutes after the hour. I don't know what the situation is. It could be the rain or whatever. So, I was just reading stuff about Bill Frist. While we try to reconnect with Maureen here. Right. Well, the boy, what, are you lying about the blind trust now? Is that the deal?
Well, I don't know. What are you reading?
Something here that would be helpful if I told you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. When he sold the stock...
Charles is still mad at me because I swore at him this morning. He's still seething about that.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Anyway, apparently Senator Frist said at the time, new questions are being raised about what he knew about the HCA stock placed in a blind trust. Senator Frist established a trust in 2002 to manage his portfolio, which included stock in the hospital. That's one of the things wrong with the medical profession. Just best it had a portfolio to start with. Anyway, which included stock in a hospital company founded by his father and his brother. Well, this already smells. He said at the time he wanted to avoid a conflict of interest and said later he did not think he owned any HCA stock. It has been learned that it's since been learned that after the blind trust was established, Frist was informed in letters from the trust that additional stock in the company had been obtained. So just another lying skunk, but couldn't happen to anybody better than him because he's one of the most unctuous people on the planet. So probably not as evil as Al Gore, but certainly close.
Not a blind trust, just a trust with astigmatism.
All right, re-welcome to the Einstein program, Maureen Dowd. Good morning, So,
I know you have this glowing, paternal pride that I'm in the middle of 2 cat fights. I hate cat fights, so it's hard for me. And that's a part of my new book about how I used to get really angry when there was any shards of feminism left in the world and fire up angry notes to anyone who suggested I was in a cat fight. But now I've just sort of
given in to the idea that we're never going to get rid of them because, one, men really love them, and two, they sell magazines and TV shows like Desperate Housewives, so there's a commercial reason for them, and the New York Post.
We'd like to see you and Judy wrestling in a vat of Jello, anything.
I know. This is what, in my book, I quote the Seinfeld episode where Elaine asked Jerry, why do men like catfights so much? And he goes, because we think, we dream at the end of them, the women are going to be kissing. But I can guarantee you that's not going to be happening in this case.
So, Bill Keller, who is the current editor at the Times, right?
Right.
They got to get rid of him. No, the wheels are coming off the paper. Come on.
Well, there's something I want to clear up that Bernard had reminded me of, which is I think Andrea Pizer and John Peters and people are suggesting that I was a hitman employed by the paper and all this stuff. And I would just like to say, for the record, I'm a self-employed hitman. I don't need anyone to tell me what to write. And in fact, I never talked to Arthur Gail Collins before I did the column. And there's a wall, and I have to say Arthur is, taking a lot of heat this week, but he's fantastic. And Gail Collins also about letting us all feel that we have the independence to write what we want and there won't be any repercussions. And he's a great publisher that way. So all the suggestions that there was a conspiracy of silence among the columnists, the reason I hadn't written about it was just because, like everyone else in the country and at the Times, I was just really confused about where Fitzgerald was going and Judy's role. And even when you read her own account, it was confusing. So it wasn't that there was any pressure by the paper before or after the column to do it. And, in fact, I did ask, before I wrote the column, I asked Jill Abramson, who's the managing editor, who's a friend of mine, what she thought, whether she thought it would be fair to write a column, not what was in it. And she told me that she didn't think I should because it would be piling on.
Right.
And I took that into account.
Let's get this back to this wrestling match we want to have. But go ahead.
Okay, I know, but I took that into account. But then I realized the whole definition of having a column is piling on. I mean, I've been piling on to two generations of Bushmen. So if our own institution needs, criticism, I can't not do it for that reason. But anyway, I just want to straighten that out.
Oh, okay.
That is not true.
Well, here's what I got out of this, and I don't know what anybody else got out of it, but I just have to share my view with you. When Keller used the word entanglement regarding Miss Miller and Scooter Libby, that kind of sort of piqued my interest the morning that Charles read that to me, and as he does read to me, by the way. Much as I'm currently reading Will James to Wyatt, and Charles reads the New York Times, another stuff to me. And then, so I said, well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that they had a romantic, whatever? And then your column on Saturday, which we'll talk about in a minute, by the way, seemed to imply, and I'm about half serious here, that there was some. What's the word you used? Tropism or tropism?
Right.
Yeah, I had to look that up, by the way. But not having a formal education, but I did look it up. It's dope. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think I don't think Judy. I think that Judy probably is angry at the use of that word and the word. The reason the word kind of hit people a certain way is because Judy does have a history of dating powerful men, for 3 decades it goes back.
Yeah.
So
unlike you, of course.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay.
Take a breath.
You're dragging me back into this.
I'm gonna, well.
Okay, I would like to, as long as we're on the subject of catfights, I just want to make one more point before I come back to Judy.
Sure, okay.
I love the New York Post and, Andrea Pizer. I like her column and everything, but I just hate the way when the right wants to attack, when you do columns about substance, about WMD or the substance of Judy, they attack your love life. Rush Limbaugh does that to me. I just think, it's something, as a woman, you have to go through that David Brooks doesn't go through. Okay, that's all I'm going to whine about. But
how is your love life, by the way? Why don't you on that subject?
Okay, let's get back to Judy's love life. Okay, so Judy, I think it diminishes the problem with Judy and Scooter to say they were involved. I mean, they obviously, I don't think, weren't involved. And
it's just because Judy has a history with powerful men. Some people, say that about her, and I think that's pretty sexist. I'm going to defend her on this point.
You're unbelievable. I mean, you're worse than I am, really. I mean, I'm telling you.
It's not about the sex. It's about the bombs.
Just because she has this reputation of being a slut doesn't mean she was in this case.
I didn't use that word.
I did.
Okay.
No, but I mean that's what you're saying. Just because
I'm saying, people who, whisper that there may have been some involvement. I think that
that's horrible.
I just don't think it's accurate, and I think Judy has a right to be mad at that, and I don't think that's the problem. The problem is the credulousness, not the sexuality.
What did Keller mean by that remark, by that word, entanglement? He just meant.
I think what he meant is that Judy got ensnared in the two big scams of the Bush administration, the big scam and the little scam. The big scam was to take the country to war after 9/11 and go to Iraq instead of going after Osama, which is going to haunt us for generations. And the little scam was to smear anyone who got on to their, ginned up intelligence and tried to tell the public about it. And she got too close to these scams.
Well, the feeling, back to your column about her, what we're talking about that. By the way, when Charles and I discussed the word entanglement, and everybody else in the country, because it was a loaded word, I actually didn't think. I mean, I was just trying to be stupid and salacious and suggest that, if I had to take a lie detector test, I don't know the woman. Well, I've had her on a few times, but if you ask me if she was sleeping with him, I would probably think not. But it's great joy for us to suggest that,
To think that she's wrapped up with this guy like a kudzu vine.
Exactly. They're all lathered up there, panting, screaming, oh, daddy, and all that. Well, which is not the case, probably. But at any rate.
You have to admit, Don, in terms of not just this story, but everything that's going on with Cheney, does it get any better than this?
No, it doesn't.
Just when you thought the Bush administration had ceased to be able to deliver this kind of entertainment.
When Scooter dropped a dime on, by the way, my friend, the vice president, yesterday, I got hot. I mean, just, it was, and when Charles used the word Fisher, I had to leave the room. So anyway, but back to a serious question, that was a pretty harsh column, and I'm thinking, going back to that, I think it was the State Department briefing or whatever it was, when you were sitting in the Times seat, and she came in.
No, it was a Stowcroft briefing.
Okay. And she came in the room not even covering that, and leaned against the wall there, seething apparently, or at least.
Well, she was covering it. She just wasn't I was the White House reporter. She was working in New York then. But here's my point about that.
And she came over and told you that didn't you think, or she thought that she should be sitting in the Times seat.
Right.
And you did what?
Well, I didn't, she was like whispering while Stowcroft was talking, so I didn't want to cause a big scene, but also I didn't care. I thought it was funny. It's funny that someone would be so inappropriate in the middle of a White House briefing. To me, I just like the novelistic qualities of Judy. But here's the point. I didn't care about that seat anecdote. The reason I told that was to show that Judy, in small ways and large ways, has always had boundary problems. For instance, Johnny Apple, worked with her. He was an editor with her in Washington. He emailed me yesterday reminding me that one time he was supposed to go to a conference in Madrid. Lely Beld, our editor, had assigned him that. And Judy wanted to go and was fighting to go instead of him. So Lely Beld said to Judy, no, you stay home, and Johnny, you go. So Johnny gets to Madrid, and Judy is there as with credentials from the Canadian Broadcasting Company. But going around interviewing people as a Times reporter. So she cannot be stopped. That's her talent and her flaw, and she has a lot of these, inappropriate boundary issues, and I think that's what got her in trouble with these scams.
Well, but I realize it's a clumsy interview because I can't get the question out about why you dropped a safe on her in this column.
Oh, because, I've been writing about, the fake WMD rush to war, and also I did the First Times interview with Joe Wilson, and these are issues I've always written about, and the phantom player in a lot of these columns was Judy. I mean, I would refer to reporters and the incestuous amplification where reporters and administration officials in Chalabi were all circulating the same information so that they might have had one source provided by Chalabi, but because it was in the New York Times, it was amplified to sound like more, then it would get into the president's speeches because it was in the New York Times. So I'd written for many years about this kind of dirty echo chamber, and I just felt like I owed it to my readers once Judy wrote her piece to provide the missing link. And if I'm going to criticize the government institutions that I care about, I've got to be able to criticize the Times, which I love.
But it seemed personal.
No, it wasn't. That's why I was trying to say I like her. It's not, as they say in The Godfather, it's business. It's not personal.
Yeah, but I do that. I mean, I'm famous for saying about how much I like somebody, and then there's a pause, and it's 20 minutes of, a Texas Chainsaw Death Match.
Well, this is why I was hesitant to do it, because as a woman, I knew it would be WMD catfight, and as a woman, the right is going to come after me on the basis of my love life, which has nothing to do with me writing about, the scams at the White House. So there's a price I'm going to have to pay that Tom Friedman doesn't pay. But, as I say in this new book, I've given up because I know everyone loves catfights, so I'm not going to get out of it.
Why do you think she allowed herself to become a stooge for the Bush administration? Because you wrote in your column that investigative reporting is not stenography, which is a pretty good line, by the way.
Thank you. Well, investigative reporting is the beginning of what when a source tells you something, it's the beginning of your work, not the end of it.
Right.
I mean, I think that, as I've often written about, it's interesting because Scowcroft and all these, Richard Haas and Wilkerson, all these people are suddenly coming forth, and a lot of them, even Richard Haas, the head of the Council of Foreign Relations, who used to be in the Bush White House, they're not clear on why we went to war or how it happened, which is really scary. But my theory always has been that it was a perfect storm. It fit into everyone's needs in different ways. And Judy's need was to get Scoop. And so she was long time friends with Chalabi and Wolfowitz and the neocons, and had cultivated them as sources for decades and was friendly with them. And so her needs interlocked with the neocons' needs, interlocked with W's needs to best his father, interlocked with Rummy's needs to show that you could have a streamlined, sort of commando team that could go into countries quickly. And they all had needs, but they all turned out to be,
So you're suggesting she abdicated her integrity as a journalist and simply to carry water for her friends, right?
I'm suggesting that she was overly credulous.
Well, okay, that's a nicer way to put it, sort of. Talking with Maureen Dowd from the New York Times. It's 14 minutes till the hour. In a way, what she did for the New York Times is almost worse than what Jason Blair did.
Well, I think the Times is sorting through issues. It's a fantastic newspaper, as you know. It's the most fun you can have for $1, and they have enormous integrity, and they're trying to get this straight, and they will get it straight this week, I think.
Yeah, but they've been saying that. Well, who's in charge over there? I mean, that's a serious question. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well,
I mean, Duke Miller says, well, oops, I made a mistake about the WMDs. We got 2,000 kids dead.
Well, I think because of this whole, First Amendment fight they went through, it's hard to sort through everything. But they're doing that. They're doing it, and they'll move on, and they'll be stronger for it.
Yeah, but we don't have time for that because we pick the paper up every day, and we expect to be able to rely on the veracity of it, and we can't.
Yes, you can.
Well, I can't.
Well, you can.
Yeah, well, I don't. I cannot.
Cannot.
Can too.
Cannot.
Now, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I asked them, because they implied in this column in the New York Post that this somehow was a demotion, that you had been moved to Saturday, and I said to this person, well, don't they rotate these people? And
yes, well, that's what
That's what it was. The rotation. They do rotate. It's it's weird because I hadn't been rotated in a decade, so it was a little jarring. But
this person told me, and this person won a Pulitzer Prize himself. They said, I don't care what kind of job they're trying to run up the flagpole. You want to be in the Sunday paper.
Well, I mean, I can give you my theory about it, but
let me hear it.
It's only my theory. This wouldn't be what they would officially say.
Right.
I mean, I think they wanted Frank to come back and I wanted Frank to come back because I love his column, and he wanted to be on Sunday because his column is longer and it has an illustration. So at that point, if I were the editors or the publisher of the New York Times, I would have had me, Frank, and Tom. I think that would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that
it used to be, by the way.
That what?
Where it used to be.
Yeah. But I think that they may have, in the wake of the Hal, Augusta fiasco, they're very super sensitive about political balance. And I think maybe they wanted to balance out Frank with someone more conservative. And even though I'm not a liberal columnist, I'm just,
This is sad.
And that's just my theory. I don't know that.
Isn't it, Charles?
Cry for help.
This is a cry for help.
You mean on my part?
Yes. I mean, that's the dumbest rationalization I've ever heard in my life.
They demote me? Oh, my gosh.
That's so naive. That's hurts my feelings.
Why would they demote me when I'm the number one most emailed?
Well, my question is, every time you go to the website, the most emailed column of every week is yours.
Right.
For whatever reason. And
right.
So somebody...
So what do you think?
Whatever. You piss somebody off, they say, well, put her on Saturday. Let her see how that works out for her.
Let her cool her heels there for a while.
Wow. I'm going to have to check this out.
Well, no, but I mean, it makes me read the Saturday paper, but...
Well, as soon as the publisher gets sorted through with all the stuff he's going through, I'm going to have to...
He ought to be out of there, too. I mean, I know you like him, but I mean, that's a joke. Somebody needs to run that newspaper, and I've had actually people who are responsible people tell me that it's outrageous. But first of all, Hal should have never had to walk the plank. He should have paid a little more attention because everybody knows I like Hal, which I guess you do as well.
Well, I wish Hal had been able to stay as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there were problems, but I wish he could have sorted them out and stayed. But Bill Keller's a great guy too.
No, he's not. He's not a great. I mean, he may be a great guy, but he's in way over his head, and that's not just.
Are you trying to? I've already been
I'm not trying
to Saturday. Where can they? You're going to get me demoted to Tuesday if you keep going.
I'm not trying to get you to say that. I'm just telling you what people tell me, and I'm
okay. Well, I can't even
responsible people.
I can't.
Pulitzer Prize-winning people have told me this. And why was it necessary? Guys had 29 heart attacks. Why was it necessary to jump all over my friend, the vice president, this morning?
Oh my God!
I mean,
did you read the piece in the New Yorker by Scowcroft? I mean, Scowcroft is clearly saying they all think he's gone gaga. He said, "I don't even know this Dick Cheney." He said, "I've known him for 30 years, and I don't know who he is."
It seemed fine when I was talking to him. He looked healthy. His skin was all pink.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And, of course, he's looked at a movie, so he was lying.
Sure.
So.
It's a fantastic story. I mean, this guy, you remember when I did all the parodies about Bush and Cheney in the hot tub or the duck blind, and Bush is running around with propeller cap on his head? I mean, that's what it's turned out to be.
Do you think he's going to be we'll go back to the Nixon administration for this phrase, an unindicted co-conspirator in all this?
Well, I can't wait. I'm just
Does that mean?
run down to the courthouse as soon as I get off the phone.
Well, what do you hear? You must hear.
Well, because I spend all my time grooming now, because I'm promoting this book, so I'm not reporting, I'm grooming. I have to do my reporting in the CNN makeup room with Andrea Mitchell. So I ran into her yesterday because she's a fantastic reporter. So I was asking her what was going to happen.
When's your book coming out, by the way?
It's coming out November 8th, I think.
Oh, I guess we'll see you then.
It's